The next one is the common locations of tidal flats. Europe, Africa, South Asia, North and East Asia, Australia, New Zealand, large Pacific islands, and parts of America. You will see in the picture, it is from the research article entitled Automated Mapping of Global 30-meter Tidal Flats Using Time Series Landsat Imagery, Algorithm, and Products. I searched this for you to know the locations of tidal flat. This map shows as color green for the non-tidal flat and red for the tidal flat locations. The next one is the characteristics of tidal flats. They have muddy to sandy surfaces, gaya nga nung nasabi ko kanina, na ang tidal flats composed of mud, sand, and organic material. Often remain uncovered partly due to the rising and falling of tides, feature tidal channels and creeks that get exposed during low tide. Ebb tide is the specific features for the characteristics of tidal flats, which the water flows back out, exposing the parts of the channels and the flats. So as for the example of this picture, it is tidal channels, which is the characteristics pa din. So in this example picture, you will see the part of tidal channels na one of those characteristics ng tidal flats. Kasi pag nag-low tide, may expose ng mga tidal channels and pati na din yung creeks na doon nakikita ang mga tidal flats. As for the ebb tide, na kakasabi ko lang kanina, in simple words, ebb tide is yung tawag dun sa water na nagpo-flows back out, kaya na-expose yung flats and also the channels, which is the tidal channels.
What is the tidal range? The tidal range is the difference in height between high tide and low tide. It also helps to classify coastlines into different types, and it was measured in meters. Types of tidal ranges. We have here three types of tidal ranges. The first one, microtidal, 0 to 2 meters, very small tidal changes. The second, mesotidal, 2 to 4 meters, medium tidal changes. Macrotidal, more than 4 meters, large tidal changes. So, the three types of tidal ranges are microtidal, mesotidal, and macrotidal. Above me is the global classification of coastlines by tidal ranges. So, makikita natin sa figure na meron dyang shaded na black, dyan yung macrotidal. So, makikita natin siya dito sa taas natin, sa figure above, na may mga part dyan ng bansa na shaded into black. So, yan yung mga microtidal ranges na nagre-range to 0 to 2 meters. Then, meron din naman tayo dyan nakikita dyan sa gilid-gilid na mesotidal na nagre-range to 2 to 4 meters. And lastly, the microtidal na pinakamaraming nasakop sa figure natin na nagre-range to 4 meters above. Understanding tidal ranges is important, especially if you're in the field of risk management. Why? It could predict coastal flooding and managing coastal ecosystems such as planning activities like fishing and construction near coast. This picture shows a photograph of a place near the coast called Ash Island area, which is south of Charleston, South Carolina. The photo was taken at a time when the tide was low, which means the water had pulled back, exposing parts of the land. You can see shiny dark patches of water that are still covering some areas. While most of the land is dry, the river twists and turns like a snake through the flat land. This is a tidal flat na na-discuss kanina ni Ms. Bangkuyo. Tidal flat where the water comes in and goes out with the tides. On our right side of the picture, there's a map showing where this place is. So, to conclude, this is a cool example of tide ranges, and it actually shows how tides can change the look of the land near the oceans.
So, yung composition nga ng tidal flats again ay made of mud, sand, and sometimes tiny crystals like gypsum and halite. and these are the zones. The first one is the subtidal zone, always underwater and below low tide. Number 2 is in the intertidal zone, between high and low tide, underwater sometimes. The last one is the supratidal zone, above high tide and flooded only during storms at very high tides. After nito, may elaborate pa natin in the next part ano ba talaga and saang part makikita tong mga zones na ito. As for the next slide, it is all about the importance of tidal flats. The first one is the natural processes. In these natural processes, tidal flats transport and deposit sediments like mud and sand. The mud cracks form in dry areas during low tide. The second one is the environmental role. And this role is home to unique plants and animals like the salt marshes. Areas for evaporating minerals to form gypsum and halite. As for economic value, oil and gas deposits found in tidal flats, scientific research and environmental monitoring. Additional importance of tidal flats is carbon sequestration. In this, similar to salt marshes, seagrasses, and mangroves, tidal flats capture and store blue carbon. This blue carbon is captured by coastal ecosystems. Organic bacteria within these ecosystems trap carbon for long periods na nakakatulong para ma-mitigate ang climate change. The other one is the coastal protection. Tidal flats serves as natural coastal defenses, absorbing wave energy and protecting shorelines from erosion. During storm surge and high tides, tidal flats can absorb excess water, reducing the risk of flooding. The other one is biodiversity enhancement. These habitats are critical for many species, including shellfish, crabs, fish. Tidal flats are also provide feeding and breeding grounds for migratory birds and other coastal wildlife. It can also be a big help for the water quality improvement. Tidal flats filter pollutants and recycle nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus, contributing to healthier ecosystems and cleaner coastal waters. It can also help in sustaining fisheries and aquaculture. Tidal flats support important fishing and aquaculture industries, serving as nursery grounds for commercially valuable fish and shellfish species. Coastal communities rely on these ecosystems for food and employment opportunities. The other one also is the recreation and ecotourism. Tidal flats store ecotourism for activities such as bird watching and mudflat hiking, offering recreational and educational experiences. As for the last one, importance of tidal flats, cultural and educational importance. In many regions, tidal flats have deep cultural significance, serving as traditional fishing and harvesting grounds for coastal communities. Additionally, tidal flats provide rich opportunities for scientific research and environmental education. Tidal flats are mainly made of silicic-clastic sediments, meaning sand and mud. Sediments are moved by tidal currents. Itong tidal currents na ito ay nag-act as the main force in channels. Waves and wind-driven currents is important on flats between channels. Sediments differ by location. In channels, ito ay mainly sand. Between channels, dito naman ay mud or mixed mud and sand. In the higher flat areas, andito na yung muddy marshes.
For you to know and clearly understand to what I'm saying starting from the pictures of tidal flats, this figure will show what I explained a while ago. The figure shows how different types of sediments, mud, sand, mixed mud, and sand are found in different zones of a tidal flat area. There are three main zones. The first one is supratidal zone, the marsh area. It is mostly mud, which is wet and soft soil. The second one is intertidal zone. It has two parts, the upper part and the lower part. The upper part is mostly mud and the lower part is mixed mud and sand. The last zone is subtidal zone. It is mostly sand. As for the other part of this figure, water levels change between mean low tide and mean high tide, affecting which areas are underwater. Aside from that, tidal channels or the small water pots are filled with sand. Muddy marshes are found about the high tide water level in the supratidal zone. The tidal flat can stretch up to 25 km from the shore. In short, this figure shows us that the mud is on top near the marsh, mixed mud and sand are in the middle, and sand is near and under the water channels, showing how sediments change with distance and water levels on tidal flats. For further explanation, this figure shows a tidal flat area, which is a flat land near the sea affected by tides. The land is divided into zones based on how often they get covered by water. As I said earlier, there are 3 zones: the subtidal zone, which is always underwater; intertidal zone, underwater during high tide, exposed during low tide; supratidal zone, above high tide, only flooded during storms. There are different types of land and sediments are shown here. Tidal channel, water flows in channels during tides. Sand flats, areas filled mostly with sand. Mixed flats, areas with a mix of sand, silt, and clay. Mud flats, areas with softer and muddy sediment. Salt marsh, areas with salt-tolerant plants growing. The sediment layers below show how these flat areas get built up over time with different soil and sand layers like ripples and beds forming. The small diagrams show close-up views of sediment layers and how they form shapes like ripples and roots. This figure explains how different parts of a tidal flat look and what kind of materials are found there, based on how often the tide covers them with water. This figure shows layers of sediments, soil, sand, and mud that form in different parts of a tidal flat area. Tidal flats are areas near the ocean that are sometimes underwater and sometimes dry when the tide goes in and out. The figure is divided into 3 parts: upper tidal flat, middle tidal flat, and lower tidal flat. In upper tidal flat, it is mainly made of shale, that is muddy sediment. In the middle tidal flat, it has layers that alternate between shale and sandstone. It is sand layers. In the lower tidal flat, it is mostly sandstone with a special pattern called herringbone cross-stratified sandstone. It means that the sand has been moved back and forth by tides. The changes in the layers tell us how sediment move in each area. In upper tidal flat, the sediments fell gently, which is the suspension. In the middle tidal flat, sediment move in but thin layers and as settled material. In lower tidal flat, sediment move mostly as sand rolling along the bottom. This helps geologists understand how the environment changed over time in the past or the late Precambrian time in Nevada. In summary, this figure shows how different layers of mud and sand are made in different parts of a tidal flat based on how water and sediment move there. This figure shows how the shape of sand layers on the ocean floor changes because of tides. There are 2 main phases. Number 1, dominant tidal phase. It is constructional event. This is when strong water flow builds up sand dunes. Number 2, subordinate tidal phase. It is destructional event. This is when weaker water flow erodes or smooths out the sand dunes. The figure shows how these 2 phases repeat over time, creating a pattern of building up and wearing down sand shapes, marked by a line called the reactivation surface. In the part of letter A and C, it represents strong tide builds sand shapes or dunes. In the middle and bottom parts, which is the letter B and letter D, it is weaker tide smooths or erases some of those shapes. The result is alternating layers of sand that show times of strong and weak tides. This process helps scientists understand vast environments by looking at these sand layers. So, this will be the last part of this presentation, the system of transgressive and regressive stages. In transgression, it is the rising sea level or subsiding land, while the regression, the sea moves up the land.